What's up everyone and welcome back to Reload Reacts episode 73. My name is Trey and today we are going to look through r/MaliciousCompliance, the subreddit for those who get back at the ones who wrong them and are usually quite good at doing it. This first post is by AtomicFile_. Don't like the way I park? Fine, I'll follow the rules. Exactly. A couple of months ago I had a run-in with the self-appointed HOA enforcer of my neighbourhood. Let's call her Linda. For context, I don't live in an HOA community, but Linda likes to pretend that we do. She's the kind of person who leaves passive-aggressive notes on cars, knocks on doors to complain about lawn heights, and calls the city for violations that don't actually exist. The issue started because I parked my car on the street in front of my house. It's perfectly legal, and I've been doing it for years without any complaints, but apparently Linda decided that my car was an eyesore. One day I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper that said, "This is not a parking lot. Park in your driveway like a respectful neighbour. Don't make me involve the city." It annoyed me, but I shrugged it off and kept parking where I always do. That wasn't good enough for Linda. The next time she confronted me in person. Linda said, "I've told you before, parking on the street is inconsiderate. You have a driveway, use it. It's legal to park here and I'm not blocking anything." "It doesn't matter. It's ugly and makes the neighborhood look bad. Park in your driveway or I'll report you." That's when I decided, fine. If she wants me to park in my driveway, I'll park in my driveway. But I'll follow every single rule to the letter. You see, my driveway is small. If I park my car in it, it blocks the sidewalk. Technically, it's against city ordinances to obstruct the sidewalk, so the next day, I pulled my car right into my driveway perfectly centered and guess what? It completely blocked the sidewalk. It didn't take long for Linda to notice. She marched up to my door red-faced and furious. "You can't block the sidewalk. That's illegal." "Oh, I thought you wanted me to park in my driveway." "Not like that. Park properly. There's no other way for me to park in my driveway without blocking the sidewalk. Guess I'll have to park back on the street then." Her face was priceless. She sputtered for a moment before stomping off. Thinking that was the end of it, I parked back on the street, but no, Linda wasn't done yet. She actually called the city on me. A week later, a city inspector came by. He checked out the situation, saw that my car was legally parked on the street, and told me I was doing nothing wrong. However, he did mention that Linda had made several complaints about code violations in the neighbourhood, and they were getting tired of her nonsense. After that, I didn't hear from Linda for a while, until last week, when she started parking her car on the street in front of my house. So I did what any good neighbour would do. I called the city and reported it. Turns out her car was slightly too close to a fire hydrant, so she got a ticket. Malicious compliance never felt so sweet. That ending was beautiful. She got a ticket. That was awesome. This next post is by Support Ezza. "No drinks at your desk." Fine, but don't expect me to answer the phones. Used to work reception at a small insurance office in the UK. Policy was no food or drink at the front desk. Fair enough. But one summer, we had a heat wave and no aircon. I brought a water bottle and discreetly kept it behind the monitor. One day, the manager spots it and tells me, "Absolutely no drinks at the desk. Doesn't matter if it's hot. Rules are rules." I asked, "Even water?" And she said yes. So the next day, I don't bring any. By 2 PM, I'm dizzy and dehydrated. I walk away from the desk and sit in the break room to drink water. Manager comes in and asks why I'm not at the desk. I reminded her that she said no drinks at the desk. I needed water, so I had to leave. Phones start ringing off the hook and clients are standing waiting around. I was told to use common sense after that, and my water bottle stayed. Let's see what the comments have to say about that one. Somehow all the people that are told to use common sense were already using common sense, but the SE managers don't acknowledge that. Happens all the time. Makes you wonder what they think it means. I guess they use it for their lack of, common sense. At a nursing home I worked at, we inherited ice/water machines. We enjoyed having nice cold water for our drink bottles, but one of the managers stated it was only for residents and families. Well, my dear friend, being the petty bee she is, wrote an email direct to the CEO of the entire hospital and CC'd in the local managers. The CEO seemed most confused and confirmed that the water was for everyone. Wish I could have seen the manager's face as she read that email. I envy this woman's confidence and fortitude. I aspire to have emailed the CEO levels of petty. That is kinda crazy. I'm surprised someone got away with that. This next post is by Wow That's So Cool 2023. You want me to be on time? Okay, down to the minute. The timekeeping system at my job runs on a 15-minute increment schedule. Basically, if you clock in during the first 7 minutes of the increment, it rounds you backwards to the start of that segment. If you're in the last 7 minutes, it rounds you forward to the end of the segment. For example, you clock in at 4:52, congrats! The system says you left at 4:45. Now if you clock in and out multiple times a day, like for lunch, that's 4 punches and potentially up to 28 minutes lost or gained depending on where you land in those increments. Shortly after I started, I began getting flooded with emails about being short a few minutes on my timesheet and was told I had to submit paid time off, even though I worked full 8-hour days, sometimes more. It didn't matter that I was physically at work. If the system said I was short, I had to burn time off. So I started paying attention. Really close attention. Here's the twist. My employer doesn't pay overtime in cash, but they do give you 1.5x time off if you earn it. So 1 hour of overtime equals 1.5 hours of paid time off. With some strategic clocking in and out, always landing on the helpful side of the 15-minute window, I've gotten good at squeezing out those 28 extra a day. That adds up to 140 minutes, 2 hours 20 minutes of overtime a week, which, when converted at 1.5x, becomes 3.5 hours of paid time off every week. All for doing exactly what they asked, watching the clock very closely. Thanks for the free time off. This next post is by Wake Me Up 3000. Trying to performance manage me out of a job? I'm up for the challenge. Years ago, I worked for a supervisor who just didn't like me. No reason why, since I just came to work, did my job and went home at the end of the day. But he decided that I was terrible at what I did and decided to performance manage me out of my job. Game on! He wrote me up for some vague BS and asked me to sign it. But since it didn't show any hard facts and data, I asked for examples of this. Meeting ended with document unsigned since he didn't have an example for this. Tried it again with an example this time, and I asked how often this would be reviewed for feedback, how often feedback would be given, and how the improvement or non-improvement would be measured. He hadn't have a solid answer, so again, no document signed and the meeting ended. The next time, we had HR in the meeting and had all of his documentation and the answer to my questions from the prior meeting. He decided to be so smart on how feedback would be given daily via email. I signed the paper and he gave a smug smile. Next day comes along and, shockingly, there was zero feedback given. No email sent for the rest of the week. Get called into a meeting with boss and HR with a paper saying there was no improvement and I was being put on warning for termination and, oops, I'm sorry, but can you show me the emails where feedback was given daily as outlined? There were none. Meeting ended. Next day, email sent with feedback. I responded with facts and data, no response. Day after email sent with feedback, again responded noting that I hadn't gotten any follow-up for the day before and responded to that day's email with facts and data. Third day, I again noted that I hadn't gotten any answers to the prior 2 days' questions and added facts and data for this one. Then I CC'd the HR person and sent it back. Apparently after much discussion, boss decided that it was just too hard to performance manage someone out of a job, and my work was just suddenly fine after all. That's crazy, it's almost like you did nothing wrong. A similar thing happened to a colleague of mine and insisted that he allow them to install a monitoring software on his work laptop. Because he knew that he had nothing to be afraid of, he allowed them. After a few weeks of monitoring, they checked his logs, he also had access to them. The result of this, he asked for overtime pay. Edit for clarification. The bosses thought he was slacking off. He thought he was working at least 7 of the 8 hours of his shift. This would have been okay, nobody was expecting to have a full 8 hours of activity. He used to open his laptop in the morning and do some remote work while he drank his coffee before heading to the office. The logs showed he worked around 9 to 10 hours every day. This next post is by Citizen Vince. Make me stay late for not being 15 minutes early? I'll show you how early I can be. I work at a casino as a dealer. We have a first in first out way of scheduling dealers, so if you start at 7, you get to leave before people that started at 8. When they were able to close tables down and send you home, pretty normal and straightforward. If more than one person starts at the same time, then who gets the option to leave first is assigned on a rotating basis. So if you have the first option one week, you will be the second the following, the third after that, then back to 1. So one afternoon, I was reporting to work with 2 other dealers, all set to start at the same time. I was looking forward to a short evening, as I was the first option and I had plans after work. I arrived 10 minutes before my shift and noticed one of the dealers who was starting at my start time was already dealing. They, the dealer, must have been in the EDR and the pencil needed a dealer right away. I confirmed that they had started 15 minutes before their scheduled time and they were the third option. Fast forward 6 hours and we had tables we could start closing. I'm stoked to get out of there. When I look over and see the dealer that started early leaving before me, I pointed out that I was supposed to be leaving before her, and she gave me an ass-eating grin and said, "Well, I started before you, so I have the first option." And then she just walked off all smug. I was super peed and said something to the supervisor. He shrugged me off and said, "It's policy. First to start leaves first? Okay, game on." I knew this coworker had kids and had to wait for her mum to come over to babysit before she could leave for work, so she wasn't always early for her shift. I have no kids or obligations, so I started showing up 2 hours before my shift and just chilling in the EDR. I would let the supervisor know I was there in case they needed me to start early, which they always did, because they would not refuse to open a table for lack of staff knowing I was on property and available to work. 3 weeks of this, and I had held the first option on every shift I worked. The dealer, who was all smug about starting early, was getting frustrated and angry at me. Having to stay super late every night was wearing her down. "It would be nice to get off before close just once," she said to me once as I was leaving early yet again. I told her I was just following policy, and she was welcome to show up early to make sure she was always first out. 2 more weeks and many complaints to the boss later, the policy was changed. Now, in order to jump option numbers, you have to be called in over an hour before your scheduled time. 15 minutes wasn't going to cut it anymore if you wanted to leave early. I hope that it was worth it for her staying until near close for over a month over that 15 minutes. I am petty, and I have had a lot of free time. Edit to answer some questions I'm seeing and give some clarification. Yes, I showed up 2 hours early for my shift. However, I was paid for nearly all of that extra time, as I was always asked to start work early since I was on property and available. I actually worked more hours and made some more money during this time than I had previously. The difference in time leaving work was several hours. First option usually leaves around 9 to 10, while second and third options leave around 2 to 3 AM depending on business. My property is KYO, so the volume of hours is less important to us. Not really an excuse, but this coworker is not easy to get along with. She has had run-ins with just about every other dealer at some point. She is the type to quote policy when it works in her favour and disparage the same policy the second it works against her. If she had something important to do the evening in question, or need to leave because of childcare or whatever, I would have happily passed my option to her. My plans were not as important as something like childcare. It was the underhanded way she went about getting herself out early, combined with her snarky remark and ass-eating grin that made me want revenge. We do not use an EO list because it actually created civil issues. People would come by several hours before their shift to sign it, go home, then come back. People got upset, so management said you can't sign the EO more than 1 hour before your shift started. So nearly the entire crew would be an hour early and bicker over it. Then it was changed to, you can't sign the EO until you are clocked in at your scheduled time and enter the pit. This resulted in people showing up an hour early and camping out in line near the time clock like it was Black Friday. So yeah, no more EO list. I feel this is malicious compliance because she was very eager to point out to me that the option numbers shifting was policy, and the supervisor said she was correct. I was just following the policy as she did, just to a more severe degree. Oh, okay, according to the comments, EDR equals employee dining room. Yeah, it took me a minute too, I wasn't too sure, I was just gonna let it go because I thought people in the comments will know what it means, so it doesn't matter. But thank you, Reddit comment, for telling me. When a coworker states policy to take advantage of you, it is completely fine to use the same policy to take advantage of them. That's how I felt. She was cool with it when she used it to get one over on me. Yeah, I totally agree. This next post is by a scissor fella. Turn my camera on? Fine. In 2021, I was working on a project with this manager called Mark, who was a real stickler for the rules. He was the kind of dude who wouldn't allow chit-chat in his team and loved an office day more than anything, despite the fact that our team was external and all of us lived crazy far away. I've got a chronic disease which, at the time, was kept relatively under control with infusions at the hospital every few weeks. Seeing as Mark didn't want to chit-chat, he wasn't aware that I live with this disease. One day I was in the hospital, working from the bed with a cannula in one arm. We had our daily meeting planned and I figured it would be fine to call in without my camera, as they could still hear me just fine, and I didn't want to freak anyone out with the infusion line in the picture and whatnot. I get onto the call and Mark immediately comments that he can't see my face. I tell him that I've not got my camera on today and don't elaborate, figuring that it's a 15-minute call and I could just as easily be driving or something. Mark responds by asking me to stay back on the call after we finish. I comply and he chews me out for not turning on my camera, saying that it's a rule that we all need to show our faces. Fine. I turn on my camera and watch his face go from red to white as he sees me in what is very clearly a hospital room. I tell him I'm uncomfortable being on camera while I'm getting treatment, also not elaborating on what it's for. His sweaty little face still brings me joy. It was a really nice moment to bask in, and I think about it pretty often when I get managers who like rules just a little too much. Like this comment says, the only way that could have been better is if you turned it on in the meeting and caused him to get sweaty face in front of everybody on the call. I agree. This next post is by MDLAPLA. CEO wants to return to office. CTO plays it perfect. I work for a Spanish company. It's been like 7-8 years and we all know each other pretty well. I've known and work with the CTO for like 10 years now. He's a cool guy that wants stuff done. Even before 2020, the work from home policy was extremely relaxed. You do you and have things done by the time we need it, we're okay. So when the pandemic came in, the transition was as easy as it could get. In fact, as a company and, especially on the tech team, we embraced the opportunity and started hiring people from outside the city for a cheaper salary than in the city, but for the people, a higher salary than the one they could get without moving into the city. I even moved out of the city during that time. Since CTO didn't want to be a sales guy, the company hired a CEO in 2021, an Englishman that came highly recommended and was stationed in his rural house in the English countryside. Looked like a cool relaxed guy for a while. Once the pandemic ended, he started pushing rather heavily for a return to office for everyone. He made polls, lengthy emails to everyone about this fostered relationships and whatnot. He got really pushy, even complaining to the CTO about it. So every time he came to Spain, people that lived around the city would go to the office just to be there so CEO was happy. And then, one time, CTO decided that he had enough about this whole RTO mandate and CEO complaining. So on a random meeting of the tech team, CTO said, "Okay, next Tuesday I want everyone on the office. If you live far away, book a train, drive, whatever you have to do, I'll pay, but be there." And so we did. That Tuesday, every single one of the tech team, including people that took a 2 or 3 hour trip to get there, was in the office. Guess who wasn't there? Yeah, the CEO. So CTO took a picture, emailed it to the CEO saying something along the lines of, "If you can't lead by example, don't push my people to do things that don't work, and we went to have a relaxing lunch and beers type of day. Aftermath. RTO mandate never came to fruition, CEO was out of the company a year later, we closed the office since everybody works 100% of the time from home, and to his dismay, CTO is now CTO and acting CEO, and things are going smoothly. Interesting twist on compliance by forcing everyone to comply once, to out the one that didn't, the CEO. Yeah, I agree. That's a bit different to the usual malicious compliance story that we read. This next post is by StarrDevill. Clock out exactly at the end of my shift? Okay. Some context. I work overnights at a well-known gym franchise that I will not name. My typical shift is 10 PM to 6 AM. Usually, there is supposed to always be 2 people on night shift together. But lately my co-workers have been calling off a lot, causing me to be in the gym alone all night. My co-worker, let's call her Sam, comes in at 6 AM when I get off. Here's the problem. Sam doesn't usually come in on time. She is usually always 10 to 15 minutes late. So onto the problem. Since Sam comes in late, I tend to have to stay clocked in past 6 AM. Additionally, since I'm usually alone at night, I can't get any important tasks done until Sam comes in. My boss noticed my time cards and got very upset that I haven't been clocking out right at 6 AM. He'd made me feel really seepy despite constantly being on the blunt end of all of his scheduling messes. So I told him, okay, I will leave exactly at 6 AM. So that's what I've been doing. I've been leaving the gym entirely unattended until someone gets there, and most of the time no one does for a while. So now members are confused. My manager doesn't know what to do considering he is the one who scolded me for staying past 6 AM. He thought that I would just clock out and stay off the clock. But why would I do that? I was not going to take the fall for someone else constantly being late. He won't fire me or write me up because this is technically what he wanted. Small edit. No, I don't have the keys unfortunately. As the top comment says, let's scold the person staying longer to pick slack and not the others that fail to show up. Top tier problem solving. I feel past jobs of mine have been quite similar to that. And anyway guys, I think that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed the stories in r/MaliciousCompliance. Let me know what you'd like to listen to next in the comment section below, and also hit that subscribe button because I post new Reddit content every single day. There are 2 videos on the screen right now, one of which is for the most recent video, and another is for a video the YouTube algorithm thinks you want to watch next. My name is Trey, this was Relo Reacts, and I will see you in the next video.